It took me 6.5 years to graduate, but the day that I got my iron ring is still today one of the proudest memories. There were many days where I didn't think I finished my degree. But yeah, like I still look back on it and kind of wonder how I made it through and how I got here. I experienced stereotypes from a very young age. So I was always the girl in class reading at recess. I loved math, I loved science. Those aren't popular things throughout school. I was made fun of, I was teased. But when I was in university, I learned how to speak up when I had something to say, and that I wasn't just going to be taking the notes, or it was going to be a shared group project, or it was going to be a shared effort for everyone. I think that it's uncommon that women go into engineering or even the STEM fields in general because our youth don't see a lot of females in those roles right now. When you think of some of the STEM, science, engineering, technology, or math, you don't think of women in those roles. So as a young girl, I didn't see very many in that role. So it was like, is this really something I can do? So I think that's a huge reason on why youth don't. And it's not saying that everyone has to. What I'm trying to do is break that stereotype, and that if someone, whatever their gender is, likes something, I don't want, because there's no one else that looks like me, like, I don't want that to be a reason they don't go through with it. When I was about halfway through my engineering degree, I got one of my tests back and I failed. I don't mean like a 48% fail. Pretty sure it was 23% fail. It was bad. The worst test that I have ever done. But at that moment, that was the lowest that I have ever felt. I got that test, ran out of the room like when we were dismissed, basically went and cried in a bathroom. I still remember sitting down with my mom and telling her that I failed this test and that I wanted to take a break. And she's like, are you sure? Like, are you sure you want to do this? I'm like, yeah, I need to. I need to for my own sake. I don't know if I can finish my degree. And it was so hard because it was halfway through my degree. I'm like, I'm almost there. Like, I've made it this far. I should just be able to keep going. But I knew that I needed to give myself time to reset and to get back onto like an even level for my own sake. I have always been really good at studying. I've always worked really hard at it, but I would read the same thing over and over again and it wouldn't make sense to me. I went to go see my doctor. He diagnosed me with depression, anxiety, and seasonal affective disorder. So the depression is what is probably the worst for me. He prescribed me antidepressants, and there were days where I couldn't walk through the engineering building. There were certain buildings that I would be standing outside holding onto the handle and I couldn't open the door. It was like there was a wall as tall and as wide as I could see, and I couldn't bring myself to open it. So I would walk a long way around. I love ice caps. And there was a Tim's right in the engineering building. That was how I convinced myself to start going through it. It took a couple months, but it was, I will go get myself an ice cap and walk through the building. Or I will get an ice cap and walk back around like another way. And it took someone in my group to say, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is ask for help. That phrase has stuck with me since. I needed help. And it wasn't my fault that I had a chemical imbalance in my brain, but I needed something that I couldn't do alone. I called my depression highs and lows. I would be really, really happy, and then I would absolutely crash and wouldn't want to get out of bed, wouldn't want to do anything. It gets closer to September, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try. I'm going to try to finish this degree. I've made it through halfway, and we'll see what happens. So sure enough, I did. To me, depression is being in a tidal wave or being underwater and not knowing which way's up. And I was finally starting and just like figure out how to get to the surface and figure out how to breathe and float and just stay there. It'll be actually 5 years earlier this year that I've been on my antidepressants. Maybe someday I'll come off of them, but I'm not in a rush right now. I'm getting back to what my normal is. I really enjoy my work. I'm so thankful that I made it through my degree, but it was definitely challenging. I was on Facebook and I saw an ad for Miss Teen Canada at the time, and it is now Miss Teenage Canada. I kind of started laughing. I'm like, we have pageants in Canada? What is this? Are you sure? So immediately I sent it to my mom. I'm like, hey, look at this. She's like, oh, that looks really cool. You should do it. I compete for Miss Teen Manitoba. I ended up winning the title. And I'm like, I just won a Manitoba title. Like, this is crazy. Okay. So I went on to nationals, and my roommate was Megan Sandu, who ended up winning that year. I didn't place. I didn't make the top 20, and I was pretty sad. I'm like, well, I thought I could have. Like, what is this? Why didn't I? So in 2017, I'm like, you know what? I want to try again. Competed again for Miss Manitoba World. Once again, I won the Miss Manitoba title. So I have 2 Miss Manitoba titles under my belt. I went on to nationals. I'm like, I got this. This will be great. I didn't make the top 20. I didn't make it. And I'm like, but how not? Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I've tried. I'm smart. I've practiced. I've worked out. I've watched 5'8". I've done a ton of events. So what am I missing? I was crushed. I honestly was. So I came home, and I think part of me thought that would be the end of pageants for me. 2019 comes, I finish school, I graduate, I get my job. Like, I want to compete again, but for me. Like, I don't want to show anyone, but that was my hesitation, is that I'm competing for me, but I've competed twice already and didn't make the final cut. What makes me think that I have what it takes this time? I'm like, you know what? I don't care what other people think. I'm doing this for me, and I don't want to have regrets on what will or what won't happen. I don't want to look back on it and wonder, well, what if I would have? What would have happened? So, sure enough, I compete. I went to nationals, and hearing my name called in the top 20 was like, I did it. I made top 20. Like, this is amazing. Then it's top 15. I made top 15. I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay, cool. This is great. Well, now it goes from top 15 to top 6, and you compete in evening gown. Walked off stage. I'm like, I think I did pretty good. Top 15, come back out, and I'm called again. And I'm like, I just made the top 6. This is crazy. And then it clicks that I have to now answer an onstage question. Mega was the one who was announcing, and hearing her call my name as Miss Intercontinental Canada was absolutely incredible, because she was my roommate 7 years prior, and then getting crowned by Alice and being able to be on stage, and some of the pictures, like, it shows my iron ring, like, holding my crown, and it's just such a surreal moment. The biggest part about breaking stereotypes is knowing that one story isn't the only story. Everybody has stories about stereotypes and how they affected them, but not all the stories are going to be the same. So the way that I look at this is I have experiences with mental health, with depression, with being a female in STEM. There are people who will have similar experiences I do, but there isn't someone who will have all of the same experiences in the same ways that I will. My Beauty with a Purpose was all about breaking stereotypes, and that was my platform. So I founded an online community called Refractions of a Reality, or ROAR for short. And my motto is and has been, let me hear your roar, or let the world hear your roar. To say really that let the world understand who you are, and don't be afraid to show it. I came up with this name because, so if you picture a diamond, and you picture a diamond in your hand, as you turn it and light hits it, it will reflect or refract in a certain way. We are like that. We show a side of ourselves to society, but there's also another side that we often don't share. whether we're scared, whether we just don't think anyone would care. But that story is what I want to share. It's about being real, and being real with intent. And that's what I'm trying to do throughout my entire reign, throughout who I am and what I wanted to get across at both Miss World Canada, at the national or international pageant, and honestly through the rest of my life. And I want to show that to our youth, that just because you don't fit a certain way, you don't look a certain way, doesn't mean you can't follow your passions.